Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is now time for the second round of this versus that. As today, the channel with all sorts of slime takes on the Cartoon Network. That's right, it's Nickelodeon versus Cartoon Network. Hi everyone, it's me Gaming Dude. Welcome to part 2 of this versus that. A new series I just created where I pin two things against each other. And today, we're going to be doing two channels. Nickelodeon versus Cartoon Network. And in this video, I'm going to be pinpointing which one is better by putting them head to head in terms of decades, actually. We're going to be starting with the 90s, and then the 2000s, and then the 2010s, and end off with the 2020s. So buckle up and get ready for the next round of this versus that, Nickelodeon versus Cartoon Network. Alright, round 1 is going to be going into the 90s, when pretty much both channels started. Nickelodeon actually started in the 80s, but most of the 80s Nickelodeon shows aren't really remembered too well, and I'm really talking about the cartoons mainly. So, we're going to be starting in the 90s. Let's start with Cartoon Network, which had some good shows like Johnny Bravo, Dexter's Laboratory, the Powerpuff Girls, and Cow and Chicken, but Nickelodeon, on the other hand, Ren and Stimpy, Doug, Rugrats, Rocko's Modern Life, The Wild Thornberrys, SpongeBob SquarePants, Ah, Real Monsters, and who can forget Hey Freaking Arnold. Nickelodeon in the 1990s had absolutely pure brilliant shows. With me watching actually a lot of them as a 2000s / early 2010s kid, I watched a lot of them during my childhood, which is a little bit weird for somebody my age, but I sort of grew up with a lot of the 90s Nicktoons, and my personal favorite is Rocko's Modern Life. Rocko's Modern Life is just so freaking hilarious, and my favorite scene is when that fat hippo gets up and says, "How dare you!" to Rocko. And every time, I think it's a she, does that, it's freaking hilarious. Here's the thing. I haven't really seen that many 90s Cartoon Network shows. The only two I've really seen is Powerpuff Girls and Dexter's Laboratory. Outside of that, I haven't really seen any of the 90s Cartoon Network shows. So what does that mean? Well, it means a pretty easy victory for round 1 is going to be going to Nickelodeon. So many classic shows that got away with a lot for their days, especially with Ren and Stimpy and Rocko's Modern Life, which had some really mature humor. Oh my god. Especially in Rocko's Modern Life, where the episode where Mrs. Bighead tries to seduce Rocko, that's freaking hilarious. But, yeah, 90s Nickelodeon is going to win this by a landslide, as I never really watched that many 90s Cartoon Network shows. The only ones I've seen some episodes for are Powerpuff Girls and Dexter's Laboratory, like I said. But the win for me is going to be Nickelodeon. Round 2, the 2000s. Now, this is my childhood. I grew up with a lot of cartoons on both channels, so it's actually going to be a lot closer of a call this time, but overall, I'm not going to say it yet, but let's just talk about this. Let's start off with Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon in the 2000s had SpongeBob was very prominent during the 2000s. It came out in 1999, but you could pretty much call pre-movie SpongeBob a 2000s cartoon because it was primarily in the 2000s. Um, you got Fairly Odd Parents, you got Jimmy Neutron, you got My Life as a Teenage Robot, you got, of course, Avatar The Last Airbender, you got some very underrated shows like Cat Scratch. What did Cartoon Network have? Cartoon Network had Ed, Edd and Eddy. I personally think that show is slightly overrated, but it's funny. Overall, it's a funny show, but I've never really gotten to want to watch it. I might watch it one day, but I haven't seen enough of it to really judge it. But I don't think it's one of Cartoon Network's absolute best shows, like some people claim. What I do think is one of Cartoon Network's absolute best shows is actually a very underrated show, in my opinion. That would be Chowder. Oh my god, I freaking loved this show as a kid. I would watch it every time it came on. I love the hell out of Chowder. And to this day, I still watch episodes when I see them. It's freaking hysterical. Every character is funny. From Chowder being this eccentric kid who borderline has panic attacks whenever he's upset or nervous about something or is getting chased by Panini, who she thinks he's her boyfriend. And his famous quote is, "I'm not your boyfriend!" I always find that funny. And of course, you have Panini, who, for the longest time, I didn't know this, but she's voiced by Lenny Loud, Miliana Mumi. She's a pretty funny character on her ways of trying to get Chowder to fall in love with her. You got Mun, who is very funny. I don't know why in one episode he was like... It's weird, he was standing there with a sexy look on his face. I believe the girls were looking at him, Panini, and honestly, the only character I forgot the name of, it's Panini's mother or mentor or someone like that. That's my favorite Mun moment, but my favorite character in this show is Schnetzel. Rada, 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 rada. Oh my god, I freaking love Schnetzel. He's my favorite character on this show. He's freaking hilarious. Just simply by saying one word, Rada, it's freaking hilarious. Chowder is definitely my favorite 2000s Cartoon Network show. That being said, Nickelodeon had SpongeBob. Come on. Nickelodeon's gonna win this round. They had SpongeBob, which I watched religiously. Fairly Odd Parents, which I watched religiously. Jimmy Neutron, which I watched religiously. Cartoon Network had some great shows like Ed, Edd and Eddy, which I think is a slight bit overrated. It had Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. It had Kids Next Door. And my favorite, it had Chowder, and it also had Flapjack, too. But like I said, Nickelodeon had SpongeBob. Nickelodeon had Jimmy Neutron. Nickelodeon had Fairly Odd Parents. Nickelodeon had My Life as a Teenage Robot. Nickelodeon had Avatar The Last Airbender. Nickelodeon is going to win the 2000s, in my opinion. 2010s. This is where things start to get a little tiny bit different. You know how I praised Nickelodeon for its cartoons in the 2000s? Well, that's because they mainly came out in the early 2000s. Starting around 2007 or so, or 2006, Nickelodeon didn't really release a great cartoon, per se. Really, Avatar was the last great one. Some people can argue Legends of Korra and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But for the most part, from like 2006 to 2015, there wasn't that much great new shows on Nickelodeon. However, 2010 was a year for another channel, that being Cartoon Network. This is when we got Adventure Time and Regular Show. The following year, we would get The Amazing World of Gumball, which is also amazing. And then we would get shows like We Bare Bears and Steven Universe, which personally, the only shows I watched, two of them I watched very often, especially one. One of them would be The Amazing World of Gumball, which is the one I watched less, but it's definitely the second most cartoon I watched on Cartoon Network in the 2010s. I think that show is freaking hilarious. But my jam for Cartoon Network in the 2010s was Regular Show. I freaking love Regular Show still to this day. My favorite episodes would either have to be the Hello Governor episode or the Grilled Cheese Deluxe episode. These episodes are just freaking hilarious and funny. And you know what came out of this, which is kind of rare for cartoons? It had a pretty good movie. The Regular Show movie was actually pretty damn good. I can't say the same about other cartoons. SpongeBob and The Simpsons and South Park are like some of the exceptions. But outside of that and Regular Show, there's not that many great cartoon feature-length films. Speaking of a film that came out as a feature-length film last year from a cartoon, we're going to be talking about Nickelodeon again. Something happened in 2016. After like almost 10 years of not releasing a great cartoon, Nickelodeon released a show about one boy and 10 girls who can't get off of my channel. They are my most popular videos, and in 2016 we got the introduction of The Loud House, which has a special place in my heart, but I just want to get this through. Please, Loud House fans, don't be mad. A lot of people might think Loud House is my favorite show of all time since I review it all the time and it's my favorite cartoon. It's not. At this point, it might not even be in the top 10. But it still holds a very special place in my heart, and that's the main reason why I keep watching it, is because it holds such a special place in my heart. I can't get away from it because it's just, like I said, the main reason it holds a special place in my heart. That being said, early Loud House is Nickelodeon's best show in probably over a decade, since Avatar: The Last Airbender at its time. Seasons 1 through 3 of The Loud House were great. Plenty of funny episodes and beautiful character bondings of the siblings. It was absolutely fantastic. That being said, in my opinion, Harvey Beaks is a show I've never really seen, so I can't really count that, but that was a pretty good show according to most too. Outside of that, Nickelodeon had a pretty bad track record in the 2010s, with mainly shows like, I know this one started in the 2000s and 2009, but Fanboy and Chum Chum, Sanjay and Craig, and Breadwinners, which are, all three of them are terrible cartoons, but I find Fanboy and Chum Chum to kind of be a so bad it's good cartoon. Well, the other two is just pure cringe, especially Sanjay and Craig, which I think is the worst Nicktoon of all time. That show is probably the worst cartoon of all time, in my opinion. Sanjay and Craig is. Words can't describe how atrocious that show is. So, with that, I think it's actually pretty easy to see who the winner is this decade. The winner is actually going to be Cartoon Network. 2010s was kind of a dark time for Nickelodeon, especially in the earlier half. The Loud House kind of saved it to where it was kind of close, but with so many great shows with Cartoon Network in the 2010s, like Adventure Time, Amazing World of Gumball, Steven Universe, We Bare Bears, and especially for me, regular show, Cartoon Network is going to swipe the easy win for the 2010s. And last but not least, let's talk about the current decade, the 2020s. I don't have much to say about this. Honestly, I haven't really watched a cartoon from either channel this entire decade. And both of these shows on the screen started in the 2010s, but they're really the only thing I can think of. They're still around on their channels, so I'm keeping them up. I've haven't watched Teen Titans Go since like 2015, and I've seen one episode of the Casagrandes, and that was like the first episode where they went to the Loud House. That is the only episode I have seen of the entire show. Outside of either of them, I haven't seen a single show that's came out that's new in the 2020s from either channel. None. That being said, I have seen one show from Disney Channel, which is The Owl House, which I think is good, but a little bit overrated. And honestly, 2020s, in my opinion, I think we might be going into a little bit of a not so great era for cartoons again, sort of like the late 2000s. But we had a great era of cartoons in the 2010s, honestly, especially with Cartoon Network. So, honestly, in my opinion, the 2020s are going to get a tie. I think they're both about equal for not really having shows that interest me that much on either channel. The only one that I think is good and kind of interests me is the Owl House. But outside of that, and I heard Amphibia is pretty good too. So, honestly, I think in the 2020s, Disney Channel is taking the lead. Disney Channel was the one I watched the least as a kid in general. I mainly watched Nickelodeon and some 2000s and 2010s I watched Nickelodeon, but the 2010s is when I really started watching Cartoon Network outside of Chowder. So, Disney Channel would be the winner here, but that's not in the contest, so this is going to go to a tie. Which that means, if you've paid attention, with a 3-2 lead, the winner is going to be Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon, I just think overall is a better channel because it's just more consistently good and more consistently memorable cartoons and more shows that I personally have watched and personally grew up with. I've watched probably every single Nicktoon at least once. Maybe not the entire series of them, but a lot of them I've seen the entire series. With Cartoon Network, really, Chowder and regular show are the highlights of the entire channel for me. I think some of the other shows like The Amazing World of Gumball and Ed, Edd and Eddy are good. But Ed, Edd and Eddy I find a tiny bit overrated, and The Amazing World of Gumball, I don't really watch that much anymore, even the clips. Nickelodeon, I watch stuff from Ren and Stimpy all the time, Rocko's Modern Life, SpongeBob, of course, Early Loud House, Our Real Monsters, Invader Zim, Rugrats, um, so many shows. Hey Arnold, just so many shows on Nickelodeon are memorable, and I've watched most of the series in their entirety, so that's why Nickelodeon to me is going to win the contest between Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network. So I hope you guys like the second round of this versus that. I enjoyed making it. I'm not sure what the next round is going to be about. It's probably not going to be cartoon related. It might actually be food related. I don't know. We'll see. But the point is, that's about it, guys. I hope you guys like this video. Comment down below if you like Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network more, and I'd like to hear your reasons why. Which one do you think just has a better lineup of shows? Which one do you think is best per decade? If you want to comment that, that'd be awesome. Hope you guys like this video, and that's about it. Gaming Do here. See you later. Bye.